Okay, can everyone hear me on the Zoom call? If you want to just post in the chat that you can hear me or give me a thumbs up, that works too. Okay, thank you, Cole. All right. And Christy and Aaron, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started here. So we have the tracker up. This is good. I see a lot more of you guys putting your numbers in, so keep doing that. Even if you only have a couple numbers, put them in. You know, if you maybe one day you just didn't do as much as another day, just put it in, please. It's a good way for us to just keep track of those things. Again, with note cards, there are a few up here, so if Jenifer does allow you guys some time to do note cards, you definitely can do a couple during that time, but then you will continue to get them from the front desk. They did arrive the other day, so we've got plenty for you guys. We ordered like 500, so there's plenty of those. Does anyone have any questions for me before we get started and I pass it over to Jenifer? Okay, cool. Awesome. So this is Jenifer Grove, and I'll let her introduce herself and what she's done and kind of how long she's been with KW and anything else she wants you guys to know. But this is session 5, price to sell. What do I do? You can just click the, hold on, let me go back to this. So if you
Use this?
Yep, just use this, or you can hit enter or whatever.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I will have it upstairs, so if there's anything going on, you can like yell at me and I can come down.
So if I just scream Nicole really loud, you'll run down? Okay.
Yep. And if you don't hear me running, then someone can call me.
Talking in a microphone, you guys are all right here. So, okay, so I kind of need you guys to catch me up to speed on what you've been doing. So, does anybody want to kind of talk about like day 1 through now, just kind of a little bit about each session? And so, who has a takeaway from that?
He said to break up the listing presentation
Uh-huh.
and then another appointment.
Sure. So when you're there doing your listing presentation and he says, what was your name, Kelly?
Kelly.
So he says, hey, Kelly, so what are you going to list it for? Then what? Your first time there.
He didn't go over that. I actually ran into that yesterday because
Uh-huh.
and I was on the phone and I told him, hey, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to come do a walkthrough, and then our second appointment, he already had a price in his mind.
Sure.
And I just kind of said, let me run some comps after
Mm-hmm.
appointment.
Perfect. Perfect. What was the next session that anybody had? What was the most impression on your mind about Ignite? The sessions that you were lead generation on your lead. Yeah. So does that get everybody the most excited? Lead generation? No? Yeah. So whenever we talk about price to sell, did you have the same excitement level of coming to price to sell as you did about lead generation? Good answer. Good answer. So in here it talks about what we're supposed to be doing the daily 10-4. So does anybody want to give me the definition of what that is and how that looks to you guys? What you're supposed to be doing with that? Database. How are you doing that, Mindy? Sorry.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought you wanted to.
And does everybody feel like they're successful at that, or are you hitting places where you're like, I don't know?
I'm kind of struggling because
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm kind of
So where did you get those 800 people from?
my church direct.
Mm-hmm.
but the majority of
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have hitting a wall with that of where to get your database from? No? Yeah, you are. You are. So, what's that? Mm. I think that it's a limiting belief that, just about, I always tell people just even, so I have a younger person that works with me, and his response to going through his phone was, well, all my friends are 18 years old. Nobody's buying a house. And so do you know what the objection, what do you think that my response to that was? They do. I mean, and they live in a house, and yeah, their parents live in a house, their grandparents live in a house, their family lives in a house. And, 18 years old, you're not far off from being able to buy a house. Do you guys know anybody 18 that's bought a house? Do you know anybody that's 19 that's bought a house? I mean, so it's really, it is doable. So I think just don't, I like to tell people, don't discount anybody or their ability to do that. I know investors who are 20 years old who are able to get a loan for investment property that live at home. Just because you live at home doesn't mean you can't buy an investment property. So don't discount anybody. So today we're going to talk about the fundamentals to pricing strategies. Does anyone have just off the top of their head, like they feel like they just have got it, like they just know how to price? No? Okay, so good. Can you read that far? Can you see that far? Oh. So who can see that far? Mm-hmm. Okay, so who's going to keep? Can you be in charge of watching that for me? Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Yeah, if you guys will let me know when you see that. Thank you for doing that because I'm looking this direction. So on the 10-4, how are you reporting those? How are you recording those? And so everyone's doing that? Yeah. So are you filling out one of those? Uh-huh. Sure.
and it just
Gotcha. It is easier. Okay, so how are you guys studying the local market statistics? What is your go-to for that? When you just meet somebody on the street and they say, how's the real estate market in Springfield? And where are you getting those statistics from? And is that a number that you guys, where I'm going with this is I feel like that's something that if you just look at it enough and practice it and take all of that information that you can, so Brian, how many active listings are there in Stratford right now? A range. Right. So I knew that about Brian's reason I asked that, but so I think that becoming an expert in wherever you are primarily working, that's really good to just know a range of where that's at, because would you agree that that helps you when you're talking to people if they say that?
create that.
can you, I give you the mic and you say that again and let them just take a note? Okay.
Absolutely. Cool. So what I was saying was I created websites through command for different zip codes in order to look at them quickly without having to go into the MLS and sort anything. And I go to them almost every day, and then I can see how many listings are coming up per zip code, not just all of Springfield. And I don't have to break it down. It automatically updates as listings go on and off the market. And it also adds average price for that zip code and a few other little data points. Yeah, it's a completely separate page. It's a landing page that you create in command. And you just type the zip code in there, it automatically populates everything. It seriously takes 5 minutes to build it. And then you can brand it with your header on it. So if you put it into an email for somebody and say, hey, 65802 is where you want to be at. Here's this information. It's got my picture. It's got my phone number and everything on it. And literally took 5 to 7 minutes to build each one.
And so what's your value? What have you received back from that? Like, what's your value proposition for doing that, spending the time doing that?
So when somebody tells me what area they want to be in, then I'll send them that page and I'll say, hey, if you want another area outside of this, just let me know and I'll expand the area and send you a separate page for that specific area. But it gives you kind of an overview of what you're expecting to go into. And then also, as you watch that page, it can give you an idea of what's happening in the market and what's happening to the values within your specific area that you want to search, not necessarily your neighborhood, but your entire zip code.
Great. Okay, so I was rereading her question, and Crystal can tell me if I'm asking that again, or if I'm saying this right, but rereading that question, I wonder if she means objections on a selling price, and if not, it's a great discussion point. But so if we have you guys been on a competitive listing appointment where you know that there's 2 other agents that you're competing against? So I'm wondering if she means an objection on the behalf of other people, so another agent. So if you have, how do you get past that when someone says, well, you know, Kelly was here and she said my house was worth 120. Anybody have what their thoughts are on that? Sure.
So I want to price it right, so you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the first way, how the first way to attract a buyer to your property is through what? Where do people look at where do they see your listing at first? On the internet. So if you don't sell it on the internet, and selling it on the internet includes having really good what? Pictures. So you've got to sell it to the person on the internet, and then they have to be able to sell it to their buyer's agent to go show it to them. And then we've got the appraiser also. So, so validating why you're wanting to price it right, that's a great answer too. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. So I want to talk about some of my listings that have really interesting, I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of my listings, but I have some interesting listings that when you look them up on the MLS, you're like, what in the world? And so first off, I want to say that everybody thinks that MLS is king, right? That's what we go to. That's your go-to all the time, right? So if something doesn't have an MLS history, what is your first thought? What's that? Mm-mm. Mm-hmm. So 30% of what I sold last year never went on the MLS. Never even went there. So it's important to just keep in the back of your mind as we're talking through today and as you're listing properties that just because it's not there doesn't mean that something hasn't happened with it. But so back to what you were saying about, did you have a question about it? Well, so that would be a rule if you're taking a listing. So if you go to a listing appointment, you get a listing and you do just the traditional. But what could happen is well, I'll talk about mine, and then that'll explain that. But real quick, so I know how you guys are going to look this up. Whenever I talk about a property address right now, how are you going to look it up? Are you going to use an app and be able to see all the detail, or are you going to be looking it up on the full website? And so will you be able to see days on market, reductions, all of that on your app? Yeah. Okay. So first off, the reason I don't know any of that is because I have someone who does that for me. So I'm like driving, been doing this a long time, and I'm driving, and she's probably listening right now and wanting to type in there to tell you guys that she pumps my gas too. That's not true, but that's what she tells people. Okay, so getting your head in the game. So somebody mentioned the mindset of your seller. So that has a lot to do with it too. The mindset component is what is their objective? So when I go to a listing appointment, I like to already kind of know a little bit about them. And we all know how to, be the FBI of real estate and find out, do they have kids, snoop on their Facebook, look them up on LinkedIn, all of those things. So knowing what their life situation, are they moving because of a death? Are they moving because of a divorce? Are they moving because of a job change? Are they moving because they can't afford their house? Kind of knowing all of those things helps us go into a listing appointment with an idea of how we're going to help them. Are we going to price it so it can sell in a week? Are we going to price it to where they can get top market value out of it? What is the objective and why are they doing that? So has anyone had a situation where it just wasn't like a normal, we just want a bigger house? So tell me about one of your appointments.
We went on an appointment. Excuse me.
Will you pass that microphone down to him? Oh, sorry.
It's off.
Okay.
Did you do us a favor?
Yes, we're going to be passing the microphone around, so that will.
I went on to a listing appointment up against two other agents, and it was a house that didn't sell, had expired from the MLS. And on the way there, they had called us and said, "Hey, we're going to work with another agent." And I said, "Well, we've canceled appointments and driven all this way. We'd at least like the opportunity to speak with you." So they let us in the door, and come to find out the house expired because they had priced it incorrectly and taken some great photos, and people had the perception that the house was move-in ready when it wasn't. And they didn't want to sell it again or try to put it back on the market because they were tired of all the traffic coming through, and they just thought it was going to happen again.
And so you believe that the traffic was because it had great pictures, looked like it's move-in ready. People wanted to go there to be ready to buy it. And then when they got there,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
saw that the house was of shambles.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
misperception, or so anyway, we figured out what the motivation was and what the problem was, and told them that we'd limit the amount of foot traffic, vet every buyer, made sure they had pre-approval, understand that it was, this house is going to be priced at the market value because it obviously needs repairs. So we were able to sell in less than a month with that information.
That's great. Did
Yeah.
everybody kind of get why they went that route?
Yeah, I mean, we said these photos look great. They did a great job of taking photos. However, I think the problem is when the, you know, potential buyers come in, they're getting a bait and switch. Yeah, they're kind of being caught off guard.
And so how does that, I mean, I think we all know how that feel. If I go to Kelly's house and I was like, she said, hey, I want to invite you over for dinner. And I'm like, your kitchen's gross. Right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We have to, you know, be able to be prepared to how we're going to soften that conversation that we're having with her. So, hey, that's great, Kelly, but I'm on a diet. I'll come over and and visit with you, but you know, whatever. But I think that just having that pre-planned idea. So you thought about that. You thought that through probably before you went there, right?
We had no idea what it looked like
Mm-hmm.
before we went there. It was kind of a last minute meeting with, you know, we didn't have a walkthrough or anything, just went there with the CMA.
So what were your exact words? What were your exact words to them without telling the whole way around? Like, what was the meat of your house is not in move-in ready condition?
Pretty much that you were marketing to the wrong audience. You know, I don't know the exact words right now. It was kind of off the cuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So you didn't say your house is gross?
No, did not. No. Said I think the house has a lot of potential, and you know, things like we have many investors that would be interested in this house at the right price. What do you need to net on the home?
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what we can work with there, because we think we can get you into the home you want to be in, where you don't have to do all the work, because this one obviously needs the work,
Mm-hmm.
and make that work for you. You know, we just have to look at the numbers
Mm-hmm.
and limit the amount of traffic.
Right. Right. So how the market works, the market dynamics are on the what? It's the law of supply and demand, right? So, so what do we know about the market right now? The supply, right? So the supply is low, right? And how do we know the supply is low? So are you looking on the MLS? Are you just taking Mike Brown's word for it on his Facebook post? How are you doing that? Mhm. Right, right.
So I'm just rephrasing I'm getting text saying, hey, please rephrase what people are saying.
Oh,
so
perfect.
we said looking at broker metrics, and then you had said looking at how fast listings are going under contract. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for doing that, Brian.
Yard signs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So looking at specific price ranges.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen to your buyers too. I mean, your buyers, your clients, anybody that has expressed interest in you helping them when they say, dude, there's nothing out there.
Well, and I think too, when buyers ask me sometimes, I'm like, you probably know better than I do, because buyers and non-buyers are looking on realtor.com and Zillow all day long. I have so many friends and family who aren't even looking to buy or sell, and they're texting me asking about things that they see on their realtor.com app. Or, I mean, so they know. I mean, you're right. Buyers do know. So right now, I think it's a really poor time to not be very upfront about what's happening with the market, about being encouraging. Oh, Kelly, yeah, I can find you a place. Easy, I'm going to be able to get you a place. You know, when Kelly already knows that she's looking all day, every day, she's telling you. I mean, how many people right now, your buyers, are telling you about properties before you ever even know they go on the market? Right? So what were you going to say? Were you going to say something about that? Yeah. Oh, okay. So determining the value based on the you have the buyer, the seller and the buyer are the ones that agree on whether it sells, right? I mean, so, getting your head in the game, I think, is really, really super important to knowing what your buyers are saying. And, and you can use that information you're getting from buyers for your listings. I mean, you just need to be a sponge and absorb all of that information you're getting from your buyers, because that directs a little bit about what the need is. So pricing criteria. So tell me some of the pricing criteria that you look at.
Square footage.
Square footage. What else?
Condition.
Location. Anything else? Condition. So I asked Brian a minute ago how many actives were in Stratford right now. So that seems so to a seller, that seems like a really vague question. But when you have a town with a population of 1,500, I don't know, 3,500, and there's only 9 actives, I mean, that in itself can be a way to come up with a listing price, because you know that it's not going to be as solid as if there were 30, and you can, because right now when you put in this many square feet, this location, this size, how many of you guys are getting back a 0, right? So do you have the sheet? I think mine says page 13. What are the current local market statistics in your targeted areas? So do you guys want to, let's talk about that, and everybody write that one in. Days on market. What's the average days on market right now? So where does everybody work at? Where do you feel like you're the expert? Like Brian, I just called out Stratford because I know that. So where are you?
Like Clever.
Okay. And so what makes you think that Clever and Billings are where that's your best place?
Well, I live in Clever, so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
live there a little bit.
So how many people are Springfield? Oh, I'm sorry. So you said Clever, Billings. How many of you guys are Springfield? That you feel like that's where you belong, that's your wheelhouse? So about half? Were you going to say something, Brian? No. So days on market in Springfield, what do you think about the average days on market?
Do you guys know how to find that? Yeah, you don't have the MLS yet? Okay, so yeah.
Do you know the answer?
I know without price changes for our market as a whole, the average is 12 days and has been for the last 2 months. But homes that have one or more price change, that jumps up to 50. I usually look at broker metrics.
So what do you think it's important to know, to be able to tell someone? So you meet somebody at the grocery store, you over here, they're wanting to sell their property, and you mentioned that you sell real estate, and they say, so how long is it taking you, you're at daycare picking someone up, and they say, well, how long is it taking houses to sell in Clever right now? What do you think the importance of that would be?
I think just
Mm-hmm.
like a certain price point.
Mm-hmm.
Becomes like starter home, so.
So if you said that to me, I would say, okay, so how many days what's the average days on market?
Around 4. I mean, they're pretty much bought as soon as they're listed, it seems like.
Mhm. So when you know that answer, that makes you look like what?
You know the area?
Yeah, like an
Mhm.
expert in that area. That's, and just get so familiar with it. And I read something in here just about just getting so familiar with it that you can just say an answer. It needs to be within a range. There's a range. There's always a range.
So Jennifer, how do you answer when you don't know the specifics, if it's out an area that's outside of what you're comfortable with?
That's a great question. I've been wondering too about Clever, because I have a buyer who's wanting to move down here. So that's a great question. I'm going to look up and find the exact average days on market for Clever. Can I get your phone number, Brian? And I'll get right back to you, and
Yeah.
I'll let you know that.
Yeah, that would be great. I really
Would
like
you
to
rather
know.
me text you, or do you want me to?
Text would be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Do you see how she did that? She just answered with a question if you don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that is a great question. And I a lot of times and then whenever I call them back, I'm like, I am so glad you asked that. That has been on my mind to look and see. I knew what it was a couple of months ago, but I hadn't looked at that. Thank you so much for bringing that to mind. That's going to help me, and then at that point you've became relational, and they're like, oh, I'm helping the expert realtor in Clever now. Right. And then they, when you place a value in what they've asked you, that carries a lot of weight. So, okay, average price per square foot. So let's do, I would say Clever's probably not too far different than Springfield. I mean, would you say? Because I find where I'm at, it's really not that different. I mean, it depends on whether it's an old house, new house, all of those things. But okay, so average price per square foot. So I need to know somebody else's name. What's your name? Patrick. So Patrick, average price per square foot. I want to move to Republic. Will you tell me what I'm looking at? I've just met you. Would you tell me what I'm looking at for average price per square foot when I move to Republic?
Average price per square foot, Republic's not really my forte, but I have done some deals in that area. I would love to get your information and look that up for you here on my phone. I'm going to head to the office right now. I could shoot you a text or give you a call and let you know.
Do you know Kelly from your office? Do you happen to know Kelly?
Kelly.
I can't think of her last name. Which one? Kelly Nystrom. Do you know Kelly Nystrom?
Oh, yeah, Kelly. Great. Yeah, great gal.
I met her, and I know she does a lot of work down in Republic. Would you mind reaching out to her? And I mean, I think she would be a good resource for that. Would you do that?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I can. I'll give her a call right now, and or as soon as I leave here, I'll get on the phone with her and see if she can help us out.
She seems like she knows a lot. So if that would be great, if you would just can you call me back when you find out?
Yeah, no, of course. As soon as I got more information, I'll reach out.
Perfect. So I knew an expert, but I like you. So I think my point in that is like, once again, don't discount anything. I see a lot of agents think, well, I'm not going to call Kelly. Like, I know as much as she does. I'm in Ignite with her, right? But once again, so you've built some confidence to me that you're not going to be stuck in your own mindset of I know everything. And so did you see value in that?
Yeah, when I'm talking to, if I'm talking to a potential client and they have a question that I don't know, I always like to point out, I've got a great resource at Keller Williams. I've got the broker's cell phone number. I can shoot him a text or call him, and he always gets back to me right away. And I know that if it's coming from him or one of the more experienced agents, that's the information I'm going to need.
So how many times do you go on an appointment and they say, I already know Adam Grady. Adam Grady's been doing real estate for my family for a long time. So how many appointments do you go on where they already know a Keller Williams agent? Well, it might not that they do business, not like an exclusive, like they're realtor, but if somebody's been in the business for 10 or 20 years, somebody might know them. They might not do business with them, but they might place value in knowing that they've been in the business for a long time, but they want to do business with you. So, go ahead.
I did have a question about that last scenario. So you've talked to Kelly. She's building a rapport with you as a potential client, but you have made a connection with Patrick and you maybe like that better, or like, does that get a little touchy between, know what I mean? Like,
so that conversation so Brian and I can do that. So Brian's Kelly and I'm Patrick. And so I'm going to call Kelly and be like, hey, Kelly, this is Jenifer Grove, Keller Williams. I met you at Ignite one day, and I just happened to run into these people at the store, and they asked me about average price per square foot, and they said they've seen your signs all over Republic and asked me if I would just reach out to you to see what your take is on that. Would you mind helping me a little bit? Like, what's been going on in Republic with your transactions?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's been super. You have to excuse, I have a really bad cold. I normally have a much higher voice, but yes, it's yeah, the market's been really good. I've got 3 or 4 that are under contract. They all sold, above asking. So yeah, it's a hot market. But I mean, if I'd be happy to work with you if there's something that you have that you need help with.
Do you I think I need to call these people back pretty soon. Like, just off the top of your head, do you know a price per square foot, kind of what your stuff's been selling at?
It's usually around the 105, 110 mark for stuff that's at an average condition. I mean, it's rarely below 100, $100 a square foot unless
Mhm.
there's something that
Yeah,
needs
they're
work.
getting government financing, so I think it'll need to be in really good condition. So would you say that'd still be that 105 to 110?
Yeah, actually, right now, probably more like 115.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I appreciate your. By chance, do you know the Smiths family personally, or was it just because I
Um,
saw their signs?
Yeah, I don't think that I've run into them directly, but yeah, yeah, they must have seen one of my signs. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. I just wanted to make sure that you, weren't already doing business with them or whatever. But I appreciate it so much. And are you okay with me reaching back out if I have any more questions?
Go get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
do you
yeah.
know the Smith family by chance?
Oh my, yeah. I helped their daughter buy her first home a while back. Yeah, that's probably where they knew my name. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they just seemed like a great family, and they had reached out. They had seen something on realtor.com that I had listed and reached out to me. Seemed like a great family, but I just wanted to be respectful, and just be respectful and find out from you if you were already doing business with them or what you thought about that, because that gets super weird when we see
yeah.
that we're doing business with somebody else's people. So I just wanted to check in with you what you thought about that.
I haven't directly worked with them. So yeah, no, that's totally fine. If you decide you want to co-op, or if they want to meet with me, I would certainly do that if that's not already someone that you're working with directly. So
Okay. Well, I was just thinking, since they mentioned you, like if they by chance want to do business with you, like it just comes back to them that they forgot their daughter bought with you. I'm going to go ahead and walk them through what we've talked about. But if by chance that happens, would you be open to me sending me a referral fee for me getting them going and getting them signed and getting them connected? Would you
yeah,
be open to that?
absolutely. As long as you would take good care of them, then I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So what'd you guys think of that? What would you say, Mindy? What would you have said? If I would have called you and you said, "Oh yeah, I sold their daughter a house."
Thanks. I've actually worked with a buyer. I've been in this exact situation, and it is really like awkward. It's super awkward. So it was somebody that another KW agent had been working with for over 7 years, sold them multiple houses
What
every year,
describe working with? What does that mean?
sold properties to them, 2 or
Okay.
3 a year for the past 7 years.
Okay.
We happened to have the same contractor. So I had a contractor working on my house. He was doing work for this other buyer who's an investor in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And the contractor mentions how much he likes me. She's a real estate agent. He calls me.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't tell me about other agent. Doesn't tell me he's under contract with a different house with other agent. So then when I start showing him some properties, we put in several offers. He likes to lowball. So you do a whole lot of work for this guy, and you don't know if he's going to buy a house or not. And so I showed him probably 15, 20 properties. And then he called me and said he bought a house with this other agent. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What happened there? So I called the other agent and we chatted, and he's like, yeah, he will call. Oh, wait, that's not right. He went to an open house and he put the offer in with a third agent. Neither of us got it. That's what it was. And then so we talked about it. And I did have him under contract on a different house. And so I just split. I gave him a referral. He didn't have anything to do with the transaction. He didn't have any workings on that particular house that I sold to this person, but it just felt so awkward. And I didn't want to sever the relationship between another agent. And I thought that was way more important to keep that intact. So I just ended up giving him a referral.
So you knew that about him in the beginning when the contractor introduced the two of you that he was working with somebody else, right?
No,
Okay.
no,
So at what point
blindsided.
did you know?
When he ended up putting an offer in with a third agent.
Mhm.
And at that point, other agents like, he's been working with me. I'm like, oh, he's been working with me.
So how many of you are opposed to what happened to her? Like you just think that would be a bad deal. But what if you didn't?
He won't
So how
sign
many
an
are you
agency
how many of
agreement.
you-
I certainly asked, and he said no because he wants to leave his options open. He was honest about that part.
So my response, I mean, my response to that is kind of, and this is a really big part of my business, so I have really strong feelings about it. But I shop at Harder House, but if I want to go to Price Cutter, I go to Price Cutter. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, do you feel like because you do work for someone that they owe you that? I would say more so on in the investor side. Like, I don't know that I'm opposed to somebody using different people.
I'm not either. And honestly, I thought if I worked harder and got properties in his hands quicker and he ended up buying from me, that would be amazing. Here's where the problem ended up coming in. Is he will call about everything. So I'll go out to the house and pick his floor, pick his colors, help him with this, help him with that. And it just got to be too time consuming. And so then you're showing a volume of properties.
Advantage of you.
Absolutely. And a lot of my time. So eventually what happened, he called about a property I had listed and it was under contract and he wanted to know how much I sold it for. And I wouldn't tell him. I'm like, if you want to sign a buyer's agency agreement with me, I would be happy to share that information.
You don't have to do business with everybody. That's the other thing is I think that agents get in a position where they so desperately want a sale, need a sale, want to work with someone. They know they buy multiple properties. And we, including myself, who knows better, we want that business so bad that we feel a little bit like we need to do that for them. That's a customer service that we need to do for them. And there's just, I mean, we don't have to work with everybody. Some people are not a good fit. I mean, there's some people that just aren't a good fit for that. So one of the things that Crystal just put on there, it says realtor relationships are as important as relationships with your clients. Absolutely 100%. So 80% of my business last year came from other realtors and other brokerages. So if you a lot of times will look at my listings, you'll see there's me as the listing agent. And then you'll have a co-list and it'll be a Remax agent. So currently I've probably got 2 or 3, I think I've got 3 properties on the market right now that are Murney agent properties. A Murney agent owns them or it's their client. Well, I get a listing and it's in another county, another area. That agent calls me and says, hey, I just wanted to know, I looked on the MLS, I saw that you've been selling a lot of property up in that area. I don't think I'm gonna be a good fit for it. My wife just had a baby. I can't drive to get there. I'm not gonna be able to show it. I was wondering, can I just refer this to you? And so that came from them knowing me from other transactions, from having great relationships and working through other transactions. That has to do, some of that has to do with commercial. You know, other agents won't want to do or aren't experienced or have the expertise to do the commercial. And they'll do that, but that's another thing is just not ever discounting building a relationship with another agent, even if they're not at our brokerage. It's so important to you know, and even not about having them come to Keller Williams, but you want their business. So Clever, like you talked about, that's where you're at. You could have another agent from 100 miles that way, still in our MLS, but they see you do business in Clever and they just had a great transaction with you on another property. They can refer that to you. So it doesn't have anything to do with the MLS. It has to do with Jenifer as a person calling Kelly and saying, hey, Kelly, I see you do a lot of business here. Will you help me? And you just do the referral form, broker sign it, send it off, and then whenever Kelly does her green sheet, she's going to give me whatever we've agreed on. So do you agree about the relationships?
Absolutely. Yeah, chances are in this business, you're more likely to do another deal with that agent than you are with one of your own clients. Unless they're an investor and then buy, I mean, guys, they buy every, 3 to 5 years or 7, sometimes longer than that. But the likelihood that I do another deal with you, with a couple deals with you guys in between that time is pretty high. So relationships are huge, huge. I would rather give away 25% to cement a relationship with an outstanding agent that's not in an area that I really can do a high level of service than to be out of my league and have my service be poor. So absolutely.
And they do. And other agents, I have a problem property right now, and I got an offer from an agent, and so relieved it was her. I mean, I was just so relieved that it was. I don't know if anybody's had that. Brian probably has, but just you get an offer and you're just like, phew, this is going to be good. You know, and she probably, you know, hopefully will feel the same way about me. And if she has something that's in my neck of the woods, then and if not, she's going to let me show it. We do a lot of that too. We do a lot of business up north now, and agents here don't want. We just had one from Amax, so we have property up by Max Creek, and an Amax agent called Nate and said, Nate, I've got these people, and suddenly they want to be in Preston and Max Creek and Camdenton, and I can't get there to show them. So we have a buyer's agency agreement with their buyer with a referral back to the Amax agent, just because she can't service them. So I agree. Let's see, how many homes are on the market now? We talked about that. We talked about the sources for local market statistics. I don't know, what are we on time? Okay. Okay, so let's just take a couple of minutes and you guys tell me your what you got out of what we just talked about. What's something that you feel like that you didn't know? What was something that, whenever I talked about doing referrals, everybody kind of perked up on that. What else? Go ahead.
I didn't know that you could do referrals with people.
So Kelly had mentioned she didn't know you could do referrals outside of your brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing the role play. Sorry, I'm just recapping. Please. Translation. Poor translation.
So are any of the things that we just talked about something that you've encountered before?
Garrett?
So actually yesterday, somebody who I had just built a relationship, I'm from Stratford also, somebody who I know in Stratford called me just out of the blue, who I know had bought a house with another agent about 2 months ago, and said, hey, a new listing popped up right over by where you live. Is there any way you could show it to me? Right. And it was kind of a weird situation because I'm friends with the agent who they bought a house with 2 months ago, and they called me out of the blue just because they know that I live over there. And so it was kind of, and I really didn't, and this happened yesterday about 5 p.m. or so, and I really didn't know what to do. So that was really valuable, what you just said with the relationships with other agents and stuff.
How did you handle it?
I really kind of haven't yet. So it's kind of,
Let's work through that with you then. Okay. So I'm, Brian can be the person who called you. And Brian's gonna talk to you and say, can you show this to me? Well, actually you do it with me and I'll be Garrett.
So run me by Miss. So I'm just wanting you to show a property in the area.
Yeah, and you just bought a house from somebody 2 months ago, another Keller Williams agent or another brokerage. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I was just wondering if you could show this house for me that's over in your area. I know that's an area you're comfortable with.
Yeah, did you just buy a house?
Yeah, a couple months ago.
You did? So how's that going there? I've wondered because I should come see you. I don't live far away, but how's that going?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we don't love the neighborhood, but
Mhm.
yeah, we're happy.
Mm-hmm. So do you, so tell me about the other agent. Like, why didn't you call me? I would just go and just be like, well, why aren't you calling Tom?
Oh yeah, it's it was a little rocky. I don't think my wife really loved Tom that much, so we just thought we would call you because we were comfortable with you. We know that that's an area that you're familiar with.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. How are you with your house that you have now? Are you going to feel like you're going to be okay? Have you thought about selling it? Like what's going to happen with selling your current house? It's not an investment, it's their personal home, right? Okay. So what do you think is going to happen like that? Because you know, when you just buy a house, sometimes, right, especially in this market, you probably paid top dollar, right? Do you feel like you?
Yeah, I think I definitely don't know. I would imagine we had to be here for at least a couple years before we'd be able to sell again. But I don't know that we like the neighborhood as much as we initially thought.
So do you, have you talked to your lender about what that might look like if you?
I haven't.
Yeah. You know, I will be more than happy to show you, because I would love for you to live over by me. But why don't we do that before you get your hopes up, before your wife gets her hopes up, before whatever? Make a quick phone call to your lender. Are you happy with your lender?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make a quick phone call and just be like, hey man, we got here. We don't really, it's not our favorite place. And we're just thinking about, there's another house that's open. What does that look like for us? And just let me know on that. And I'll be glad to meet you over there. I'd love to see you guys. I want to come see your new house that you've got. And while we're doing all of this, why don't I just, do you want me to just kind of tell you what I think about market value right now for your house that
Oh
you're
yeah,
living in now?
yeah. If you don't mind doing that, Jennifer, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I do that? Why don't I just come to your house maybe tomorrow, make a phone call to your lender, come over tomorrow, and I'll just take a look at your house and see what that's like.
Perfect. Yeah.
So you've agreed to help. You've offered them some valuable advice about where you're at. You still haven't taken them there. And so what we've done is we're building your relationship with them to the point of you're going to have it, it's going to be solid that they want to do business with you, right? And I'm certain they wouldn't have a buyer's agency agreement after they closed on their other house. And then you're going to get the listing on their house, because you're going to invest some time talking about, because they've got to get past that part. They've got to get past that part. Does somebody have
Will
a
you ask
contract
something?
in front of them? Or does someone have have ability to pull up a buyer's agency? Go ahead and ask the question.
Oh, okay. So my question is, she was saying, they probably don't have a buyer's agency agreement because they just bought a house. And my thought was, a lot of times when I'm working with a buyer, especially now when the inventory is so low, I'm like, hey, it might take us a long time to find that right house. So let's make this buyer's agency out 6 months, 9 months, so that I don't have to rewrite this in a few months if we don't find your perfect place. So let's say that I've got this buyer's agency agreement and I've got it for 6 months. We find a house in 2 months. Does that automatically cancel your buyer's agency agreement, or are they still in buyer's agency agreement until the time expires?
We're gonna give you some facts.
Research time.
Okay.
It's always been my understanding that it's for the.
It is. Yeah, I'm certain it is too.
Because that person I was telling you about earlier, we have to make everyone specific to the address that we make the purchase on, the contract. We have to do a new buyer's agency every single time.
Okay, so line 17 says current exclusive representation agreement. Buyer, and then you would mark is not a party to an exclusive buyer's representation agreement. If buyer is party to an exclusive buyer's representation agreement, such agreement ends on whatever the date is. So that when you're getting them to sign this buyer's agency agreement, so the question would be asked, just so I've got all my documentation right, do you have an agreement with them? And so they're going to look back through their paperwork and they're going to see what day that ends on. So that's that part. So that would be putting it back on their plate of them marking the box and telling you when it ends. And they should have received a copy of it, right? Ooh. Hmm. So that's why you need to, that's why you need to just say, hey, just making sure that, I've got this right, that you're not in an agreement with somebody else. And if they want to do business with you, they're not going to care to just look it up or to tell you or whatever. And so then the question is, it's been 2 months and they've got 180 days, right? So then what? So at that point, then they can give them, do you know how to end an agreement? I mean, it would just be, I believe it's just as long as it's in writing, that you can end that agreement.
Yep.
That's what we're looking at right now. Is we're reading through the contract, because the line 17 says that if buyer is party to an exclusive buyer's representation agreement, the agreement ends. And we're working on finding out the answer of what happens when it closes. If a property is listed on the agreement, then it expires when the transaction is complete. That's correct, for sure.
You don't usually have a property listed. Well,
It would be a buyer's agency.
right. Typically, when I'm getting a buyer's agency, I'm getting it before we've even shown a property. So I don't have a property on there. It's very rare for me to have an address unless it's with that one particular investor.
Okay, we're gonna get that. You did? Perfect.
And then I think Jennifer was just about to say it, but in order to get out of a buyer's agency agreement or a listing agency agreement or anything, it takes almost zero effort for the client. They can just simply send you a text that says, I don't want you as my agent anymore. And then it's terminated.
Josh Boyer, he's my client. I'm joking.
Funny thing is, he's looking at like.
Yeah, we'll defer to a broker. We'll defer to one of the brokers.
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a 10-minute break, and so we'll get the answer to that when we come back.
Yeah, it says one or more in the dealings. So I would say if it's one of the specified types, either commercial, residential, rental, farm, and it states one or more, then it's a little unclear if that would continue.
Mm-hmm. And then that's where it goes into, you would just say, let's shoot them an. It does not expire. Okay, so we're going to go back to that line 17, and you're going to say to them, hey, just for safety's sake, to make sure that you're not still in an agreement with them, would you mind looking at that date? And then they're just going to pull it up. They're going to look it up. And then when they do that, they're just going to send an email to Kelly and say, hey, Kelly, it's Joan. Just wanted to let you know that we're thinking about looking at a house down the street. And I just wanted to make sure that we gave you notice that we're not going to be using you for that purchase. So please accept this as notice to terminate our buyer's agency agreement, and you would be good. And they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, Garrett, are you kidding me? I'm so much smarter than him. You should still use me. I'm joking. Uh-huh. So
Garrett asked what would happen if he hadn't known that it was there and it's still effective, and he had still showed a house and gotten into agency.
So what would happen in that case is me as an agent, if I would have just pulled up something and just happened on the buy side, it's pretty unlikely that somebody's going to notice unless somebody tells them or whatever. But me personally, if those people didn't call me back to help me, that would have just been an indicator to me that they weren't happy with my services. They don't want to do business with me. And I'm as an agent, I would never go after them and say, I mean, you don't want to do, I don't want to do business with people who don't want to do business with me. And
if that went to mediation or litigation too, it would come down to procuring cause, and if you had procuring cause for that client. So even
if you had went and shown it.
Yeah, even if I had an agreement with a client, if they go in an open house and write it with the agent, and I didn't send them that open house, had nothing to do with it, it would be difficult for me to argue that I had procuring cause for that client. Does that make sense? So at the end of I think the moral of that, what I've always done is like know your people and take care of your people, because it's really hard to track that down and have that in writing. Correct. They would be at default of their obligation within the contract. Yeah.
Yeah,
Your
because
issue
you've
would be
asked
with the
them.
client, not with the agent. Yeah.
Yes, because when you're having someone sign that buyer's agency agreement, you're asking them the question, are you in an agreement with another agent? If they mark is not, that's not your responsibility to let everybody for us to post on the internal page and say, is anybody doing business with Josh? So yes, yep, that's right. Okay, let's take a break. Yeah.
They don't have all the background.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so we all know that the point of getting a listing is what? What is the point of getting a listing? To sell it, right? Right? So there's really no point, right? If we're not going to sell it for someone. So that is a very straightforward, when we have objections to what our price is too. So price and condition, we talked about the condition, about the photos. That's really important to know where we have to sell it first. Competitively priced properties must be in the best possible condition, right? So when someone has a house that has, we know there's going to be inspection issues, there's broken window, there's a tarp on the roof, and they say, hey, I know everything's selling for top dollar right now. True or not true? True. Yes, yes, yes. So that's when we talk about condition. And so one of the examples was that they just said was the house next door sold for. So will you guys tell me everybody's names so I just don't keep telling Kelly and Garrett? So Kelly, Jennifer, easy, Alex, Patrick, Aaron, Debbie. You haven't said anything, so Debbie's going to be the woman of the hour. Justin, Trudy, I forgot. James, Garrett. Yeah. Tyler. Danielle. What is it? Okay. Natalia. Okay. Dallas. Is that right? Okay. So now if I can remember, I'm going to remember Debbie's name. And Dallas. Debbie and Dallas. Oh, so, you guys are ridiculous. So how many people got that reference? Okay. No shot. I'm not explaining. Maybe Brian will, okay, so everyone, when we take our next break, everyone can go over to Brian and he will explain in private. Okay. So we need to know what our seller and ourselves, what we can't control. So we can control what? Condition? Well, our sellers can control condition, right? Right? Often when we pull up to a property and we see that everything's overgrown, what does that lead you to believe about the remainder of the property? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I always think too when I go into a property and the light bulbs aren't changed. Like you go into somebody's house and they're like all these burnout light bulbs. I think to myself, if they couldn't change a light bulb, then we know that they probably only put a bowl to catch a drip under the kitchen sink, right? They didn't fix it. So we can control the condition. So the script, the dialogue on here. Debbie, will you read the script on here about seller, some of the things you can control during the selling process? Mine's 15.
Mr. Seller, some of the things that you can control during the selling process are the condition of the property, the availability of your home for showings, and your positioning in the market. In the end, value is determined solely by what buyer is willing to pay in today's market based on comparing your home to others currently in the market for sale. I don't determine value, and neither do you. The market determines value. Does this make sense?
Yeah, so Debbie, what do you mean when you tell me that the availability of my home for showings? What do you mean by that? when you mentioned to me that the things I can control is the availability of my home to show it.
Well, we're going to want to make sure that the outside is mowed, everything. You want it to look presentable, that people are going to want to go in and see the home.
So I don't want anybody to ever come between 9 and 11 in the morning because that's when the baby's sleeping. And then I'm always gone walking my dog between 1 and 3. So can you make sure that everybody that wants to show it comes between 1 and 3 while we're out with the dog?
I can put that in the seller's notes, and I can let other agents know when they contact me that those are our availabilities.
Okay, perfect. So what just happened? Right? You met your needs. Yeah. So how many people work from 1 to 3 during the day? Like what percentage of the working class works between 90%? So what do you have to buy a house? A job, right? So how many people in your past professions have been able to say to your employer, I need off from 1 to 3 to go look at a house? So what could be a conversation, Trudy, what could be a conversation that you would have to me when I say, yeah. So Trudy, what would, let's script that.
Okay.
So, hey, Trudy, I don't want anybody to look at, I'm always gone from 1 to 3 with the dogs and the kids. Only let people look at it from 1 to 3. Is that okay?
That's going to limit our buyers' availability a lot. Most people are probably going to need weekends and after 5. We can try for that, but my suggestion is to be able to show it after 5, or maybe after 3, after 4, something like that.
Okay,
but
so your seller says, I'm not doing it. I have no showings except for 1 to 3. So 10 days goes by, and then, so I'll be Trudy. Hey, seller, I just wanted to let you know that we've been on the market 10 days. We've had, there's not very many houses on the market. I've had 36 phone calls to show your house, and no one could look at it because no one could do it 1 to 3. How can I help? How can I help you get people to where they can show it all day long? What can I do to help you?
Well, let me look at my schedule again. I didn't realize there was that much action for this house. Let me look at my schedule. Maybe I can rearrange this where buyers can come in at different times. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, you know what? Let's do this. If this is okay with you, what I would like to do is, so the baby takes a nap, it's a couple hours, right? So how about if I give 2 hours notice? Like, what do you think about that? Like, I can give you 2 hours notice. If you're gone to the store, maybe you can stay gone for a little longer.
Sure.
If you're at home and it works for 3 o'clock, we'll just schedule it. So I'm going to put on the listing, if it's all right with you, that it's a by appointment only, and you get 2 hours minimum notice. How does that sound?
Yes, let's try that. That sounds good.
So that's something that they can control. You're still letting them have that. Because the problem that you run into is when you let the seller lead with what's happening with that listing, you're going to have those conversations get harder and harder and harder. And then after your 10 days on the market, they're going to be like, well, Trudy, my friend, their house got shown 20 times. Like, what's going on? Why? I don't understand. And then when you have that conversation of, well, it's only been 1 to 3, and you're like, well, you didn't tell me. I mean, that's what I would say is you didn't tell me. I just needed you to have that hard conversation up front. And I think that makes it look better because you're going to sell the home versus having a hard conversation after you've already looked like you failed. So understanding the window of opportunity, there's that window of opportunity. They say, I don't know if they've talked about this, I'm sure they've covered this in coaching, but when you put something on the market, it's go time, right? How many of you guys look every morning or have it on your schedule to look morning, noon, night, before you go to bed, the moment you get up, 3 a.m., to see if somebody has put something new on the market, right? You look at it and you see that every one of their pictures is a bathroom mirror with a reflection of them with their cell phone, right? So when I see that, the first thing I think of is, oh boy, if somebody wants to look at this agent, it's going to be a doozy to work with. Do you know what I mean? Like there's just so many things that come to mind when that initial time on the market. You know, I just during the break got a message from Madison, and she just said, hey, went over and took new pictures because we had a house we put on the market and it had like gross carpet in it. And we put that on the market. And we've had 3 people be like, oh, that picture is horrible. So we went and took a new picture of that. So how many buyers could we have possibly lost because we should have omitted the picture until we got the new carpet in? Or, you know, those are just things that, you know, that we need to take in account, you know. And then the other problem is that I see we run into, and me, even in the business a long time, is we've been told so much to make it perfect when we put it on the market, right? Do you agree? Everybody thinks it needs to be absolutely perfect before it goes on the market. The listing. So what happens if it doesn't get perfect? Then we delay a day. No? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a hard balance to know, you know, about making it perfect. And sorry, I didn't give you enough time to. So, like Mindy said, that meeting the expectation of your client. You know, I have clients who you pull out of the driveway and they're like, "Well, it's not on the. I can't find it on Realtor.com yet." You know, you like teleport the information. And then I have sellers who will never look, you know. So funny story, but Nate and I went on a listing appointment together for a residential house, and we were there, and it's an older couple for sale by owner for like 6 months. And we were there doing the listing appointment and everything. And he's like, I'm so frustrated with my wife. We could have already sold this on our own, but she's just not very good with the internet and everything. And he said, I've been telling her for months to get it on Netflix, and she just will not, she can't figure it out. Yeah. And so we got the listing ready and everything. And then we sold it for $20,000 more than he was asking for it, because we facilitated getting the dead tree out of the front yard, and, you know, all this stuff. And so we did it. And when we went to have the contract, we had to meet him in person because he only signs in person and lives in Cassville, and the house is in Marshfield. And anyway, so yeah. So Nate's been just, you know, going back and forth, but he said about Madison that works for me, he was like, that girl is so good. Like, I mean, it was like a matter of days, and poof, there it was on Netflix. I don't know what he meant, but we made him happy, so. But yeah, so now we have an ongoing joke. If we put a listing on, we're like, make sure it's on Netflix. Yeah, yeah, I know. And then we make jokes about, like, we probably have some things we go on that could actually make a Netflix series, but. Putting on Netflix. Oh, that would be stellar. Yeah, I dare you guys to try to compete with that. No, I'm joking. So the other thing that's important is knowing whether it's appreciating or depreciating. So do we know whether the market's depreciating or appreciating right now? Appreciating? So so give me somebody tell me why they say appreciating.
Thank you. So if you look at the trends of our average sale price in the area, it's just been going up for a while now. And so I guess, what is it, yesterday, maybe interest rates started to take a little bit of a hike, so that might be changing. But at this point, it seems like everything is still going for a little bit more than what I would expect.
Mm-hmm. And so do we know how to forecast what that looks like? Do you know what it means to price ahead of the market?
Yes.
So what does that?
So let's pretend that we're in a decline, because that's just easier to get your hands around. So if we're in a decline, and I'm pricing the house, and I know that by the comps, it should comp at 100. I'm not going to price at 100, because by the time that's on the market, it's only going to be worth 95. So you want to kind of price ahead of the market. And
do you guys feel really, really confident that you know how to do that? Because I don't feel comfortable with that. And you know, I'm looking at trends and looking at those things. We have facts that tell us what's happening. But some of us who've been through different markets through 1982 to 2000 to all of those, when you look at that, there are trends that follow that are way broader than what we just look at on the MLS. So, yeah, and I just think it's hard. I was just curious how people feel about doing that, because it's hard, and when you have sellers who are asking you, what do you see happening? What do you, for example, we have investment properties. We had several this year, and we got in this big rush for some reason that we wanted everything gone by the first of the year, because what would be a factor that you've heard sellers or you might think is going to happen at the first of the year? Elections. What else? Taxes. Market slows down. Why do you think that? Do you believe that?
I can see that since there's not very much inventory out there right now. Oh, sorry. It seems accurate because there isn't a lot of inventory out there.
It's always interesting to me that we have agents who say, I'm not working, everything's really slow, and I'm not going to do much through Christmas, so I'm not coming to the office, right? Do you hear agents say that? And then just not that you believe this, but what do they say if I was a seller and I said, when's the best time of the year to sell? If you weren't involved with people who are encouraging you to say that. Spring is the best time to sell, right? I mean, that's what we're told. So a lot of the things that we are just things that we hear, that we, like when we read Mike Brown's, you know how he puts on there how many closings and stuff? Do we validate that? When you see Mike's numbers that says in Wright County, there were 300 sales last year, does anyone go look? How many of you guys debate that number? How many of you would repeat that number? So that's what I'm saying is a lot of times we get caught up in what we hear is the reality, when maybe it is. But in case Mike's listening, I believe you and I don't look. No, I'm joking. Right? What were you going to say, Brian?
So I see the weeklies, and that's great because I don't have to put it together. And thanks, Mike, if you're listening. But dailies to me. So the week of Christmas, every single day during Christmas, it was between 6 and 19 that went on the MLS total for SOMO every single day. And I watched it, right? Yesterday was 69. Today, I think 59 or 62. There was every showing that I've gone on this week, I've had to wait at least 5 to 25 minutes for somebody else to get in and leave. And last night lost a multiple offer situation with 3 offers. So the house was on the market less than a day. So I don't see slow. I mean, it's not slow whenever I see it.
When I have a conversation with you about what's happening in the market, you've said, when I'm showing, this is happening. When I'm calling to make appointments, this is happening. So that is having your head in the game more so than saying, I saw on Facebook that there were 300 sales, so that means whatever. So for a seller, when someone says to me, what I'm out showing, and when you have those, when you're living it, when it's boots on the ground and you're out doing it, then you have more. That sounds way better than my office puts out a number that says, right? What were you?
So, an interesting thing, a few months ago, I read an article that they were saying this is going to be one of the busiest winters ever for the real estate market. And one of the reasons they stated why was because a lot of people, due to low inventory, they were wanting to sell their house, but they couldn't find anything to buy, so they were giving up, and they were going to wait until the winter to do that. Well, I have talked with multiple people, like several different families, and they said verbatim that exact same thing. Yeah, we want to list our house, but just nothing's out there. So we're just going to wait until the wintertime so things presumably slow down and then just kind of go from there. And we are seeing evidence of that. So.
Can I tell you what I've done in that situation?
Sure.
I feel like it's worked so far. So what I've done in that same situation is I say, hey, let's get a listing contract together. Let me get my photographer in here so that when that right house comes on the market, I can put a non-contingent offer on. I can put your house on the market the same day, and boom, we sell them both, and you buy one. So if that's the absolute argument or the objection that I've used.
Do you ever
and
see
gotten that to work.
listings that say sale contingent on seller purchasing a new home? It's just in your listing. Yeah.
Hard job. This is harder than real estate.
You are doing such a good job.
Well, I don't have to be up here in front. I'll come out and mingle. Did you see my Price is Right video yesterday? Yeah, see, it should be good. Like, and the prices, Patrick? Just joking. I'm just teasing. Okay. Oh wait, now I need my paper. Okay, so we talked about pricing ahead of the market. And then okay, so Dallas. Do you have your book? Okay. Mine says page 35. Closing the deal scripts at the top of page 35. Can you read that? How to close the deal. Okay. Okay.
After studying the comparables, taking into account the unique characteristics of your home and its setting, and using my knowledge of the averages in your neighborhood, I have prepared my recommendation. Remember that my primary goal is to net you the most money possible, and I believe this pricing plan, matched with my 14-step marketing plan, will draw agents and buyers to your home and position it as a highly appealing and highly competitive property.
So as a seller, I don't have a objection to give to that. Do you know what I mean? There's no way to object to that. Right? So when you just go in and say, this is what I'm doing, this is how I came up with the number, you know, there's really not an objection so much to that. And then it just goes back to the averages in your neighborhood. So just because you pull comps in Southern Hills and you see there hasn't been a sale in 9 months, does that mean that there hasn't been a sale? Mm-mm. It could have happened for sale by owner. It could have happened just friend to friend. It could have happened, been withheld from the MLS, you know, all kinds of factors. And that's why I will preach it all day long. It is so, so important to become an expert on whatever area, whatever house type. You know, if it's a tiny home. So tiny homes are kind of are popular. Yeah, so when we look at someone having you go do a market analysis on a tiny home, you really need to be an expert in tiny homes. I feel like that's like looking all over Springfield, looking outside Springfield, talking to other agents. If you've seen someone on the internal page say, hey, I've got a builder that's building tiny homes, you know, I think that it's important that you become an expert in that so you can have conversations with people that are relative to what they're asking you to list, and you're going to know the information. They're going to have different types of heating and cooling. They're going to have different zoning. You know, if it's in the city of Springfield, you know, there's going to be deed restrictions, there's all of those things. And so if you come completely prepared and know about exactly what you're doing, that it just validates. So you could replace that and using my knowledge of tiny homes all over Southwest Missouri, that holds a lot of, when you're doing a competitive listing appointment and someone comes and says, well, there's only 2 tiny homes in your neighborhood, so this is what the price should be, blah, right? You want to be able to say, you know what, I looked and I've researched tiny homes and this is what's happening. The trend is there's a lot of tiny homes in this area, or this is what its square footage values are across the state of Missouri. And Keller Williams has such a great resource for all different agents all over the place. You can just go to the internal page and just put in tiny homes and see who's been talking about it and reread and reach out to people. So become an expert on what that listing is. And then let's see, Garrett, will you read the next one, the next script?
After looking at everything I've presented about condition and price, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with this price recommendation? Is this what you'd like to list your home for? Are you ready to make the decision to work with me? And if yes, great. It sounds like we've got a price and are ready to put a sign in the yard. Let's do it and get this house sold.
So we'll go over the pricing objections. So the objection is, Garrett, I need a certain amount from this sale to buy our next home. And then if you'll read that next one, how you're meeting that objection. It should be on the next page. Oh wait, it's page 34. Sorry, it's the page before.
Will you as a buyer pay what the seller wants because that's the price they need? No, you'll pay what it's worth, right? That's what your buyers will do too.
So what you're telling them is, when you go to buy your new house, are we just going to pay them what they want? Or are we going to make sure that it's the right price? So when I bring buyers to your house, they're not going to pay you what you want. So that would just turn it right back around. I forgot your name. Tyler. Okay, so Tyler, I just need you to price my house just a little bit higher, and then we'll come down later.
I hear that, but here's what frightens me about pricing it higher. People who have seen many houses will find yours, but they won't look at it because of the price. Now, we don't want to drive buyers away. We want to attract them. We want them to make offers. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is the greatest number of showings comes in the first three weeks. If they see the house is overpriced, they will walk away and we don't get them back. Let's get 1 or more people to make an offer right away. If more than 1 likes your price, they might even compete and drive it higher. Wouldn't that be great?
So look up address 120 Allen Street, Marshfield. And look at the portion on there where you can see original price. Allen, A-L-L-E-N. So tell me what stands out. If you've got that pulled up, tell me what stands out about. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a bit lower than it originally, so it was originally listed at what? So it was $229.9, and what did it sell at? $175. And how many price reductions? 3. And how far apart were they? Mm-hmm. So what do you think the reason why that was like that? What's that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tyler said that's what the seller wanted for it.
Was wanted the price to be high, right? 120 Allen Street, Marshfield. The most recent closed. On 120 Allen Street? So what happened on that was I had a seller who said our house is worth 230,000 because 104 Allen Street right next door had closed and they felt like it was the neighbor's house sold for, right? So they just, it didn't, and I'm not a place in my business where I spend a lot of time doing the script the same. I'm more of the just, it's not going to happen, you know? And everybody will develop their own style and their own strategy for what happens when you get kicked out the door and all of that. But I said, okay, so here's the deal. I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to list it for 229, but every Friday until it sells, we're reducing it by $10,000. How do you feel about like that? How do you feel about that? And he's like, well, yeah, because we're going to sell it right away, right? You know, so this wasn't about, I didn't have to pitch to these people my marketing skills and whatever, you know, why to use me or any of that. And he was like, okay, let's do that. So that's what we did. We just reduced and we reduced. And then we hit a sweet spot where suddenly everybody is going to. So we went probably 2 weeks with not one showing. So in this market, if you have a house on the market that does not have one single showing in 2 weeks, there's a problem, right? So, you know, that's what happened with that. So, you know, once again about, you know, when you meet that, you know, if you can come back to and say, okay, so I'm going to list it and this is what you're saying that it's going to list for, then that's fine, but you're going to have some give and do things my way. So so I don't know if you noticed anything about the pictures, but it's also staged. Yeah. It sold with new appliances. They just weren't with the appliance trouble getting appliances. Yeah, it had new stainless whenever it closed. But that was my other. Okay, if you want to do that, that's fine. But condition, we can control condition. Move out. We're cleaning it up. If you're going to push me to get this value out of it, this is what we're going to do. So it was a compromise to, you know, and I don't want to be the one to, you know, had I have put it on the market at $199, like I said in the very beginning, and it was sold in one day, what would he have said to me? You underpriced it, you know? So just knowing your seller and negotiating, you know, a give and take of that is really important. Jacqueline Inninger.
The question was who staged it.
It's a person that owns business. I'm joking. 417 Staging. Yeah, she's really, really good. She's great. If you guys ever need her, she's really good. And then it looks like Crystal said she did that, scheduled the allowing viewings, that she's done that once. Let them do that. Okay, let's see. Who wants to read? How can we be sure the price you're recommending is the right price? So the seller says to you, Natalia, how can we be sure that the price you're recommending is the right price?
Real estate is a market-driven commodity like stocks. If you have ever bought a stock, how do you know what it's worth? When you sell a stock, although you know what you paid for it, the market doesn't care like that. The market says what your home is worth. Why should a buyer pay more than the market says it's worth?
So that was just very factual. The market is what it is. You can't, it doesn't lie it is what it is. Um, so explaining the CMA. So something that's interesting about what I do and everyone kind of learns differently. So when I say a CMA, if I said, Trudy, I need a CMA. Can you help me do a CMA really quick? What's the first thing you're going to do? I mean, you get the property information, and then what? You're going to go to the MLS, and are you going to use the CMA format that's on the MLS? So how many of you use the fill in the blank CMA and then print it off and it looks all neat and pretty, and then you put it in a Keller Williams folder and take it? You haven't? I think that's fine. We just all have different, we just have different. I don't take CMA. I don't do them a lot. I work out of my sphere of business, and so I don't do listing presentations so much, but for you guys. So why have you not done one of those? So
I don't have listings.
So I think that's a really good thing that you should try to hop on and do for somebody. I think that would be a good, so I'll give you a property address that, let's take some time, and I'm gonna give you a property address, and you guys help me. We'll just do a CMA, not on the computer, but we'll just talk through it and come up with a price. And then whenever I list it, I'm gonna list it at the price that we all agree on, and we'll see what happens. Right? Okay, so 2108 West Farm Road 92. Springfield. 2108 West Farm Road 92. Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, so when you have a listing opportunity, if you have a listing opportunity, okay, so let me clarify this. So something that I do is I service the whole state of Missouri. So we have listings in Clinton, we have listings in Sykeston, we have listings in Joplin. We service the whole area. So like Brian asked if I belong to Kansas City. So he had a purpose because he has a property that is right there on the border of that. So if you're in Marist and someone comes to you and says, I want to list a property in Webster County, it's really close to Lebanon. So what is your response to that? So if I call you and I say, hey, Debbie, my aunt, she passed away. We want to sell her house. It's in Marshfield. What is your response going to be to that? So this is what you can do. So I've talked to you guys about being very referral based. So don't ask other agents to do work for you for free. We all know everybody's great mentors here. Everybody will help everybody. But partnering with someone who is an expert in whatever your listing is doesn't mean you can't lead the listing. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, but you can always reach out and have someone partner with you on that, and partner in a financial way too. Agents can be compensated in a lot of different ways. So let's just use Stratford. So you have a listing in Stratford. Stratford's 45 minutes from Lebanon. That would make sense that you could still list it, but you're not in this board. So you know that Garrett and Brian are from Stratford. That would be a great opportunity for you to reach out to one of them and say, hey, remember me from Ignite? I'm in Marist. And I really want to list this house in Stratford, but I feel like it really needs to be in your MLS. That would be important to do that. Would you like to partner with me? So partnering with Brian or Garrett doesn't mean they're just helping you. That means that you're co-listing it. That means that you're going to give them a referral fee and they're going to help you and be available all the time. That might mean that you give it to Brian and you just follow along and he gives you a referral fee. It might mean that you say, Brian, I really need this closing. Like, I'm starving. I'm the starving real estate person. I really need the money for this. Could you hop on this still with me for $250 and just help me? You know, and it all comes through that green sheet. It's all good. We just like to, I know they like to have that in writing, what the agreement is. So you could just put something in writing, some sort of referral agreement or something, just on the form within Keller Williams that says that you've agreed to pay Brian $250 or whatever that looks like. So then what happens with that is you know what happens when Brian has a listing at Lake of the Ozarks? You've built a relationship with him and he's going to be like, yes, Debbie's in Maris, right? So that's what I would do. That's what I would do. And so, mhm.
I'm kind of between Lebanon and Marshfield.
Mhm.
So I am right on the border of Maris and Flex. Would it be beneficial to me to join both MLSs?
Yes, yeah, you can do that too. You can join whatever MLS your brokerage belongs to. But taking it back a step to where you're an expert in or where you feel comfortable in and you look at the value of that. So if you have to join the board here and you have to pay $800 a year to join this board and whatever the monthly fee is, if you have to do that, would it be cheaper or not cheaper, but would it be better to just have a partner in this board? Or you leave it in, just put it in that board, in that up there. So, that's kind of up to you where you think you're going to do the most business, how much weight you're going to put in the MLS. When Brian asked me about Kansas City, my business isn't solely driven on the MLS. So for me joining other boards, I just don't think for me, it's not what I'm going to do. So yeah. Yeah.
Is your business not driven on the MLS because you do commercial?
Yeah. And so I do a lot of sales that aren't on the market. So we do we do a lot of distress stuff, and we just, it's based on a referral from a lender that says, hey, we've got a property that we're approaching foreclosure. And so then I'm just directly going to them. And right now we've got our pockets full of buyers, right? So we just call and say, we just match them up.
Okay.
And so we do that a lot. Commercial, yes. So I do a lot of commercial ag, income producing agriculture. And that isn't really, we usually have somebody just right in mind for that, or we have a sphere that we go to. So like USDA, we have good connections with them. So if I have a property, a great example is we have a greenhouse that we put on the market, that had been on the market for 2 or 3 years. It had just been sitting there for 2 or 3 years. It got referred to me. And before we even put it on the market, we already had a buyer because Farm Credit Services had a greenhouse buyer and knew that we were doing a lot of that right now. So,
Okay.
yeah. So for you guys, the MLS is super, super important. And it's really good to know how to use it because I get out of practice of using it. And a lot of time, I didn't even know I just told you guys I don't know how to use the app to pull comps, just because that's not my niche. So were you going to ask something? Oh, I thought you were going to ask something. You have a wondering face on. No? Okay.
That not asking somebody to work for free, because that's really kind of a crummy thing to do. When a lot of us are in the coaching program with Blake and Brian, so sometimes I feel like I'm asking them to work for free. They're getting benefit out of it too, but I have a sponsor at Keller Williams, and I just happen to have a friend who has been an agent here for 7 years. So she's really been helping me out just because we're friends, and it's been nice. But she had some out-of-town clients that came in from Washington State, and they just happened to only be available the week that she was on vacation with her family. So she asked me if I would be willing to show them a property. It turned out 5 properties I showed them all over Missouri because they decided they wanted to live in Missouri. period.
Sure.
So, you know, we drove all over the place. That Saturday that the weather got really nasty, I drove to Phillipsburg to show them a house. So, you know, she said, I'll give you, you know, I'll compensate you if they write a contract. She would have given me a referral or whatever. But instead, she's actually going to help me list my own house and make sure that all the documentation.
Sure.
So we're working a trade. And to me, that's valuable and fair, even though, I mean, I spent actually I spent 2 days with this couple. But I got a lot of practice showing houses and talking with other agents and making appointments and stuff. So there was value in that. So I don't know if that helps you at all, but
Yeah,
so we
no,
kind of
I
just
think,
traded.
yeah, whatever the relationship is that you have with the person. But I just know a lot of times there's just this flow to some of us of constant, will you help me? Will you help me? Will you help me? And that's fine. But whenever we don't see action on that and see that we're actually helping you, there's a difference between helping someone and just answering the phone all the time for someone, if that makes sense. And there's all kinds of situations. We just had one where Nate's wife just had a baby. Somebody wanted to look at Max Creek, and I called an agent here at Keller Williams and I said, here's the deal. Do you want a referral or do you want me to pay you today? You know, and he's like, oh, yeah, pay me today. You know, what is it? So I paid him mileage and I paid him for his time, Venmo it to him. He made $150 and done. You know, we'll negotiate everything. We'll do everything. Had he have said, I want a referral fee, then he would have just got 25% of $250,000 sale. So it just kind of depends where everybody at. But my point in saying all of that is lean on people who are experts in whatever that field is or neighborhood or type of buyer or seller. Okay, so agent says, so I'm going to use, what was your name? Justin. Okay, so Justin, I'm saying to you, you're the seller. Would you like to obtain the highest price possible for your property? And you're going to say what? No. No. Just so yes. So I'm saying yes, of course, Justin. I want to make the most money possible, and then you're going to read to achieve 33. Oh, sorry.
To achieve the highest price possible, you must have maximum exposure to the marketplace. The most important decision you will make in this respect is where you decide to price your property. The way most sellers establish their listing price is with the comparative market analysis, what we call a CMA. As you can see from the CMA, the average market time in your area is 60 days. This means that if you want to sell property in less than 60 days, you have to be in the top 50% in the terms of price and property condition. To sell in 30 days, you'll have to be in the top 10 to 15% in terms of your price and property condition.
Everybody understand that? Okay, so did you guys look up 2108 West Farm Road 92? Okay. So did you find it on the MLS? So now what? It's not on the MLS. I'm the seller. Okay, so you went to the CRS data. Okay, so what did you find out? What's an important thing that you guys are looking for to help me price that? Okay, so I'm the seller and I'm calling. Hey, Mindy, I want to list this house today. So what information are you going to gather? You gathered that information. What else do you know about that property from the CRS? So we're still not getting a super important piece that I think is
If
what,
I'm talking to the seller, I'm going to ask them how much they owe on the house, if they have a mortgage remaining.
So do people want to answer that?
Well, what point are we at? I don't know where I am with my.
I'm at, so my
listing.
question to you guys are, what information are you looking at? So we're not talking to me, the seller, right now. but you're at home and you're trying to come up with a price. So identifying things where size, year built,
Eric online says condition and age.
condition and age. Okay, Eric said condition and age. So
School district.
school district. So what do we know about those things? What school district is it in? Springfield? Okay, so Springfield. What do we know? So I'll tell you about the condition. It was where my video was shot yesterday. So what do we know about that house that I was in yesterday? Yeah, it's gutted. Yeah. And what do we, so we're still missing a really important piece. When you look at, Alex, when you look at the ownership history, what does it say? Like what's it got going on there? Once person's owned it. Nope. So here's the thing is nobody knows. Nobody knows except for me. So it's sold 3 times. That property has sold 3 times in the last 60 days. Mm-hmm. And they can go on the MLS. So, and the reason I'm telling you this is that there's all kinds of unique situations that we think we might know what we're talking about, but we really don't know. CRS only shows 2. So the reason it shows 2 is another factor. So there was a contract for deed that never happened. So what happened was I find a house, a distressed house owned by a Murney agent who doesn't want to do anything with it, done with it. It was bought for a project to resell, doesn't want to do it. I just happened to run across this person and they were like, hey, do you have somebody who can get this off my hands, right? So I went to my investor and I said, hey, he doesn't live here. Let's buy this, do it right now, cash offer, sold it. So 1 sale, right? Do you see that on the CRS? Rosenthal? Yeah, so 1, yep, so well, it wasn't passed on though. He bought it, the trust bought it from the owner. Yep. So what are you thinking, Mindy?
Like normally I would just pull it from the Flex.
Uh-huh.
You can on the app.
See, it's not just me. Thank you all. Okay. Yeah, so you're going to come, so when you're wanting to price that, you're going to come to me and you're going to say, I looked this up. This is weird. What happened? It was like a trust and then a family and then a whatever. And then I'm going to tell you the story. So I'm going to have you guys help price this. So a person just wanted to get rid of it. So I sold it to the investor. The investor bought it and he does contract for deeds. So he has us find people who want to do contract for deeds. He gets a down payment and then you pay him a monthly payment amount and he doesn't care what you do. He doesn't care if you make $5 or $5 million. It's a contract for deed. So he sold it, made $15,000, $20,000. The contract for deed person had too many properties going on, decided to get out of the contract for deed. So I reached out to another investor and said, hey, I've got this property. Are you interested in it? Here's how much it cost. So they went, ran their numbers, what it cost to remodel, everything, paid. So it sold 3 times. When was that? Just whatever the last date of the sale on there was. October, yeah. Yep. So October. So last person that owned it, which is me, not really me, but the seller would have been October. So do you think that that plays into it is a factor into the listing it when you know that it's never been on the MLS? Because that's what you do, right? You look at it up and you're just like, why would I pay 200,000 for it? I can see on the MLS that they paid 50 for it, right? We all get that in our head. And I think it's important. It's important to know that. And then what would be the other important reason to know that it's sold so many times in a short period of time? What does that make us think? Something's wrong. That's really weird, right? Right? So do you guys have an idea of a price? Yeah. Yeah. As it is right now? Yeah, well, if you look at my video, okay, so let's take a break. And during that break, look at my video. It's on the internal page, and then we'll know the condition. Sound good? Yeah. So another good point is Eric put on here is he says that the CRS shows two. So we talked about the reason that third one was because there was a contract for deeds, so that wasn't recorded. And then he says all sales prices were kept private. That's not necessarily true because if it's cash, it doesn't get recorded always on the CRS. Does that make sense? So those prices that go on the county record are recorded liens or deeds, whatever that read on there. So if they pay cash for it, it wouldn't say that. Because so if this house, if she paid $20,000 for this house and 6 months later we price it for 210, Alex is going to tell her buyer, I don't know about this. They only paid 20,000 for it. Now they want 210, right? So that, from an investor standpoint, that's why they wouldn't. Kelly? I fixed it.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I think I got it. Yeah. Yeah, or someone that might, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of goes back to that whatever, we don't disclose a lot. I mean, not personally, but like my sellers, we don't disclose. Yep.
This may be a stupid question, but do you have to disclose how much how much a contract has gone for? Do you know what I'm saying? Like if
it's under contract?
If it's under contract and another agent calls you and they're like, well, what's the contract price? Like I feel very uncomfortable disclosing that.
So Mindy, that's a great question. And I'm sure everybody wants to know. Wait until it closes and you'll see it on the flex.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. Click.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm really uncomfortable with that because
Yeah.
people will say, it's listed for X, like what's the deal on that?
Yeah.
Like what's it, what'd you get on your contract?
There you go. That's what I was going to say. So you can just refer back to the agency agreement.
And agree, like the seller can, or like there's a box to check that says does or does not allow you to disclose if there are other offers or what those offers are. So it really depends on your agency agreement and your sellers.
I don't either. I think I don't know. I don't really, I mean.
You're
Mhm.
losing your leverage.
Yeah. So, I mean, if people call, I mean, Brian, he said he calls. I mean, like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Mhm. Depends on what? So Mindy's saying if she has a relationship with an agent and feel her comfort level of discussing that with you would be different than if she doesn't know you or she's had a bad transaction with you or what, then that your relationship that you've built with her would help her with knowing whether to disclose that. I mean, if Brian called me and asked that, I'd be like, why you want to know? I'm joking. And it depends on what market you're in. If it depends on what market, like my market's not probably the same as you guys are, so I wouldn't ask somebody that because it probably wouldn't matter. But if you're working in areas where houses are going fast or there's low inventory, that sort of thing, it would look different. Do you guys want to take a break? Okay. So think about that list price. You still haven't given me the list price. I'm going to go with the Murney agent. I'm joking. Sorry you couldn't hear anything. We were just having a free-for-all conversation. Okay, back to class. Okay, so so regarding that property on Farm Road 92, the factor that's driving that price, two people have said condition. Everybody agree? The condition is just, it is what it is, right? Can't spruce up that lawn and make the inside be finished, right? What do you think is going to make that property sell? Like, what is a feature about that property that's going to make it sell? 2 acres outside of Springfield. Yeah, that's been the go-to everywhere. Where can you buy? How many properties in the city of Springfield have you seen on 2 acres? Yeah. Okay, what the seller can and can't control? What can the seller control about that property? Who it markets to? The seller. So they could finish it. So you could say, hey, I know that you're ready to sell and be done with this project, but let's just look at what it would be like, what it would be priced at if it was finished. Yeah. What can't the seller control? The market? Timing? What's the window of opportunity on this property? So today, right now, what is the window of opportunity on that property? Do you think it's getting some fabulous professional photos and getting it staged? Getting it to the right person. So if right now I had you list that property and you put it on the market, do you have anyone that just pops to mind that would be interested in a gutted house on 2 acres in Springfield? Just those, right? Okay, we'll talk after class. No, I'm joking. Okay, so we know the window of opportunity is probably before you even put it on the market, right? That's really where you're going to be successful on this property, is pre-thinking, what am I going to do with this property? Who's going to buy? That's one thing that I always do when I pull up in a driveway. The first thing I think of is, who is the perfect buyer for this property? Who am I going to sell this property to? And I go through my brain, all the buyers that I might have, all the buyers that I think I might have seen another agent have, another need. I scan all those things in my mind of who the buyer might be for that. Pricing is about the market movements. What do we know right now that we see agents asking for every day on the MLS? Or I mean on the internal page? Nope. Yeah, definitely that. Definitely. So who wants to do an open house there? It's definitely open. What else? Flips. Every day somebody's like, who knows where there's a flip, right? So the market movement on that could be pretty good. So would you guys be excited about this listing? Okay. Hey, we should ask the broker that if we could let you guys all co-list that house. How many people can co-list one house? Okay, don't chase the market. So what that means to me is Brian listing it and saying, hey, you know what, I think more people are going to want flips. I think more people are going to want out there, so let's price it way above. Because we know that we're headed in, because we just said all people are all wanting flips, right? So how many of you guys know someone wanting a flip that has cash? So how many of you feel like you can go find that today? The flip, the house for them to resell. I know, isn't that beautiful? I know. Although demo is my favorite part. Yeah, I like it. And you find some weird stuff. Inappropriate weird stuff. So, we just closed on a house a few months ago that it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a full unfinished basement. It had 13 people living in it. And in the unfinished basement, they had built framed walls big enough for a mattress and a little nightstand in each room, right? And they were people who had moved to the city and they had been homesteaders. So do any of you guys know much about homesteading? So do you know what a berm is? Like a toilet berm, like you get a a bucket, and there's like a composition. You probably know this from military, but you build this bucket of this composition so you can use the restroom in it, and that it either deteriorates or whatever, and then you don't have to empty the bucket. So your whole family can use this one bucket to go to the bathroom. Yeah. It was? Yeah. Well, this is a nice, beautiful house in town. And they just had all these people living in the basement. And so they had buckets down there where they had been. This is just it was the first time I'd seen it. It wasn't that I couldn't believe it. I could believe anything, but I saw that. And, but they had also used have you seen where a sump pump goes in the ground in a basement? Yeah. And then, yeah. I mean, a $150,000 house with 13 people, divide that by what? That's $100 a month for everybody to live there. It's a good deal, right? You just empty the bucket. No water? Yeah, yeah. So it didn't smell. No, because they've mastered this ability to be able to live with using the bathroom in this compost. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, yeah. And then lots of weird. People live weird. Do you agree that like you go in houses and you're like, what in the world? I know. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So take 10 minutes and talk about that property, and then we've got 10 minutes for you guys to come up with a price. And if you have any questions about the property, I'll answer the seller questions. So you're not going to find a sales price, and you're not going to find anything. Mm-mm.
Right. So all we have is that it's a gutted house and it's on 2 acres outside Springfield.
He's going to look up do you know how to look up the tax record? So it was built in 1942.
Yeah, CRX.
Yeah, it's got an unfinished basement. 2-bedroom, 1-bath. I think someone said 1,400. Okay, so Eric is telling us all that a land alone should be 47,000 based on the neighboring property that is pending. Yep. Hey, Eric, they're asking if the neighboring property that's pending has a home on it. And do you mind sharing that address with us, Eric, of what the pending is? No home, it's land only. So Eric Jackson is telling us that the land alone should be about 47,000 based on a neighboring property that is pending, and he says it has no home on it. And then I'm asking if he will share that address with us. He says it's West Spring Creek Road, Springfield. No street number because it doesn't have a house. There's not any outbuildings. There were outbuildings, but they spent $6,000 leveling all the outside. The current owner has spent about $6,000 leveling all the outside buildings. So it's this beautiful out the back of the house. It's this beautiful cleared. There's mature trees. When you look out your back kitchen window, it's nothing behind you at all. Okay, so we've got about 3 minutes. Well, can you pull comps? Oh. There's no outbuildings. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Yeah. Yep. Mature trees. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about the price. Eric had said that he felt like the land alone is $47,000. Okay. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. How do you know it has city utilities? Mm-hmm.
It's in the city?
It's not in the city.
It's not?
Nope, it's in the county.
But it is on city utilities, is it not?
It is on city utilities as of just like probably 30 days ago. So
Oh,
it's been
wow.
all well and septic out there.
Okay. Well, I had a listing
So
close by
how
over there.
cool is that to live in Springfield but not be in the city? Like, do you feel like there's value in that? Fireworks. Shooting your guns. I'm not saying you can do that, but I do know that's happening out there. So the location of it is, do you guys know where, if you're headed up 13 Highway, you know where you would go to Fantastic Caverns, go to left? Don't go left, go right. And if you take that, Farm Road 92 is the road that goes in front of the city animal shelter and the police academy. You know where that's at? Like down by the water treatment stuff. So does anybody agree or disagree about the price for just the land value? So is your strategy going to be that you're going to take the land value and then add the, why not, Brian? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Depending on what it finishes out at, just looking at neighboring properties that have sold.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I only pulled that street just because we were on limited time, but I
and
think it's
there's comps on that street.
right. And I think that the finished value of that home is probably around 130, 135.
Mm-hmm.
May stretch to 140, but work backwards from that and figure out half value, right? Half value, that's 60,000 or 65,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not worth that to me or to somebody else putting money into it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I originally wrote 27 to 33,000
Mm-hmm.
for my price, but I could be convinced to
Mm-hmm.
go up to 40 if I needed to. I think it's 60,000 worth of work. Just based off of the one video, it may be more. I don't know.
No plumbing. Nope. Mm-hmm. The value of it having. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The house itself was really cute, but it was trashed. It had been neglected and it had been vacant for 6 months. So there was a lot of work. And the sellers just sort of threw a number out there and I said, I'll do what I can. And I had 4 offers on it within the first week.
Mm-hmm.
And we got it. I mean, they closed for 6,000 less than what they asked for, which is still pretty significant. So, I mean, Patrick and I kind of worked that we would do 55 is what we'd ask for because there's the value of the land. Plus there's the bones of the structure already there that you can, pretty much mold however you want.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
Now, with it being on the 2 acres, if I was looking at this property, I'm like, oh, wow, I have the potential to build maybe 2 more houses on this
Can't
land.
happen.
No? Can't happen. Okay, why? And why is that? Just the zoning?
The county, because of setbacks. Because of setback rules and utilities. So the cities, so you have to have, it just won't work. The county just won't.
Okay.
And there's like a whole list of
All right,
reasons.
that just popped in my head, but
Mhm.
thanks for
Yeah.
clearing that up.
So that was one of the original ideas. That was whenever it was originally bought. Mm-mm. No, it's residential only. Okay, so lowdown on the property was, so it sold for more than 50 the first 3 times. And there's 50,000 being put into it. And there's probably only been about 10 put into it at this point. And I think on those, whenever going into what kind of when we talked about what kind of buyer or who we think our buyer is going to be, everybody kind of looks at flips a little bit different. As far as some people are like, I just want to do cosmetics, I want to do this. There's people who, we do full guts. That's our go-to. So for us, 50,000, putting 50,000 in something isn't a big deal. Some people say, if I'm not going to make 50,000, I don't want to do the deal, right? No, you know, people who are like, I don't want to spend my time or spend my money if I'm not going to. But I have somebody who buys from me right now, and he's happy with making $5,000 or $10,000. And we did it 8 times this year, so we made $40,000 on 5, and won't even go to a property. So there's just all kinds of different ways to look at it. So who you think your buyer is going to be. So Brian had a buyer type in mind, and what they're going to want to spend, and all of that. So, yeah. Okay, so are we running out of time? Okay. So someone brought something up a minute ago, and it made me want to bring up a property also. It's 903 Park Avenue. And that property just closed like a couple of Fridays ago. And so that was another example of seller wanted to price. They priced it at like $229, something like that. It was in Bolivar. It was in not good condition, not move-in condition. And we closed at, it's a not disclosed sales price on the MLS, but we closed at $175 on it. And it just took somebody just making a cash offer, a low offer, and they took it. So there's just such a wide array of, the reason I'm saying all of that is just keep your mind open, that there's all kinds of different buyers, all kinds of different investors. There's people who, when you do a home inspection, they want you to fix 85 things. There's people who don't want to do a home inspection. So there's just all kinds of different people to keep in mind. So the last part is the CMA analysis and how to do that. One of the things that Kelly and I were just talking about, and someone had asked me prior to this class to talk about, is making adjustments on comps. So never add or subtract off of the subject. Does that make sense? Does everybody know what that means? So not, in saying that, we can add value to a comp for bathrooms. So we only pull up 3-bedroom comps for this house that has 2-bedroom. Do you agree that sometimes you have to do that? So what do you add to that comparable, a dollar amount for a bedroom? From the subject? No. Yes, to make it be comparable. Yeah. But if it had, but if you needed to add a bedroom, I said that wrong. So if you needed to add a bedroom to it, how much would you place value on a bedroom? That's just something we won't get in. I mean, I would sit here and talk all night, but that's something that I think that would be important for you guys to study, is like, what is that value for the bathroom? Does anybody have this off the top of their head?
Find that.
Well, you could probably just Google it. I mean, I do a lot of broker price opinions and through third-party places, and they have like a standardized dollar amount of what that is. So does anybody have those off the top of their head? Mm-hmm. And then work backwards from. But a lot of times we need to know.
Exact dollar amount. They'll be like, a bedroom is worth $10,000.
Yes.
Extra bathroom is $4,500 or
yes.
whatever it is.
So those are good numbers. So a garage, a house without a garage, and house with a garage. So we know that it costs $10,000 for a 1-car garage, $20,000 for a 2-car garage. So on those CMAs, I think it's really important to know how to make those adjustments, and that will just be, and you guys can all reach out to me however, and I can help you figure out. I've just done it for a long time and I know those numbers, so I don't necessarily know where to tell you to look those numbers up, but just replacement cost. I mean, surely you guys have had your bathroom remodeled, right? Or not necessarily bathroom remodeled, but just like you guys have added on a bedroom or you've added on a screen porch. How much did that cost you? Or find someone that you know who's done it hey, Trudy, how much did it cost for your in-ground pool when you got your pool built? And then just start gathering information and keep all of that in your brain, you know, of what things cost. And then you can just use those for, because you guys are probably going to be at a place where people are going to say, how much would it cost us if we added? We're thinking about moving, but we're not sure. We just need another bedroom. What do you think it would cost? Sure. Yeah. Uh-huh. So he's saying there's a plugin on command that will tell you how much the renovations cost. So that's probably a really good resource too. What is the best source for those values? I understand the process, but don't have a feel for those values yet. So like we said, you might be able to just Google just general idea of how much make a contact with a contractor. Do it per square foot. So if we know that the average price per square foot is $100 a square foot, and we know that a garage is typically 600 to 800 square foot, that tells you $8,000, right?
Did you reach out to an appraiser for that kind of information?
Yeah. I mean, they would have that. If you have a relationship with one, they're all really busy too right now. The thought of reaching out to somebody and asking anything is really hard to right now. Title companies, they're not going to be able to tell you that, but title companies are a good resource to have prior to listing or selling if you need a copy of something or. The values of the. Well. Mhm. Mhm. Well, it's just going to be it's just simple. It's going to be stall. How much do we consider so I consider a one stall garage $10,000. So if that was mine, I would be making the adjustment to my comp for 2-stall garage, which would be $20,000. Because otherwise you're going to be splitting hairs, because you would be like, oh, in this neighborhood, the garages have to have a peak of however high on it, or this one, you know what I mean? And that cost could vary greatly depending on the style of the houses or that sort of thing.
Yes, but at the same token, so like if you're in a neighborhood, like you said, where you have a 1-car garage and everyone else has a 3-car garage, those houses aren't necessarily going to be a good comparison because of the difference. Or if there's a neighborhood where like you can't have outbuildings or
Mm-hmm. So my question so if you came to me and you said, hey, Jenifer, why did you price that property at whatever? And I said, well, it's because it was missing a 2-car garage. I deducted $20,000 for that. And you were like, well, garages in Southern Hills are $40,000 and garages in Berkeley Heights are $80,000. So that can't be right. I'd be like, you know what I mean? Like you can't, like a house in Berkeley Heights and Southern Hills are really different, but I would still do that same value, whatever you want to make that value, depending on, so where I'm at, my areas and where I'm doing business, that would be correct on a garage. But if you were only doing River Mist or River Cut or Emerald Park, that's going to look different. So yeah, so use it based on wherever you're working at. So a 1-car garage in Max Creek is going to look different than a 1-car garage in Berkeley Heights or Berkeley Estates. Is it Berkeley Estates or Berkeley Heights? But so yeah, I think you can take that, but just in general, I think that just having that knowledge of a number, a general number would be good. So tip number 1, when sellers want to go above your recommended price, be sure they know that any offer they accept must meet the test of the buyer's professional appraisal. A price that won't appraise will require additional money from the buyer. So doesn't appraise, and you've told them you can get $150 out of this house and it only appraised for $145, who pays that extra $5,000, or who takes away that $5,000? Because I'm going to tell my buyer I wouldn't pay more for a house than it appraised for, right? Wouldn't we say that? But would we also tell our seller, what do we tell our seller that we've told, well, it'll bring 150? It didn't appraise. Yeah, so you just have to, so make that clear when they're wanting to price above what you recommend, that we have that issue, could have that. Tip number 2, price per square foot can be a valuable tool, but only when comparables are very close together in terms of features, age, condition, and location. Properties in newer subdivisions would be a good example. So that's what Mindy was just saying about me selling something in a farmhouse in Max Creek versus something in Emerald Park. That price per square foot is gonna, you know, for example, my brother-in-law builds customs, and he you know, he's like $200, $300 a square foot. You know, if someone who's building properties like we were talking about earlier, Brian, those might be 100, 120 or 100, yeah. So definitely that price per square foot, which goes into what we talked about at that. Let's see here. So recommending the price for the seller's home, a detailed custom market analysis, the unique characteristics of your home and its setting. Everybody wants to hear how much you love their home, right? The primary goal as me as the listing agent is to net you the most money possible. I believe the pricing plan match with the 14-step marketing plan. And then we talk about average sales price, average days on market, recommended list price, and recommended sales price. Those are all, you know, really important that we know that list price and sales price might be two different things. Thought of something in a second. Okay, so the next was for us to go over CMA, and I think we kind of did that on that Farm Road 92. So tell me what were kind of your doing that CMA on that property over there and hearing what has already happened with that property. What were some ahas from that?
Kind of list to your audience in some ways.
The list to your audience.
Market to them so that you
market to who you think the new buyer or who you think the buyer will be. Okay. Sorry, I was walking up here.
Really highlight, you know, aspects of the home like the 2 acres that would bring attention from the people that you know are going to be interested in this property. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? No? So does everyone know how to get onto Flex and do a CMA? No? Does everybody know how to get on Flex or Maris? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So real quick, where's everybody from? So just if you guys will go down through the line and tell me where you guys are. No, like where you work. Like, so when I want to learn how to refer to you guys. So, and I want you guys to learn how to refer to me. So tell me what you like to sell, what you find most interesting, what town you like to work in.
Agricultural for really long
Uh-huh.
sales, so
Okay.
with acreage.
Okay.
And I'm based in
Okay.
Okay, so like I said, I'm in Clever, so I love like working with the small towns, and I really like working with like first-time home buyers or young families because I have young kids, and I just love helping families that are just kind of getting started.
Right.
It's
Nice.
probably my favorite.
Probably Springfield. I was born and raised here. I've been here my whole life, so I know it pretty well in the back of my mind.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Springfield, I guess. I've lived here for about 7 or 8 years now, and my wife's lived here her whole life, so she's got a lot of contacts. And she lived on the southeast side of Springfield, and that's where my mother-in-law lives. We're currently under contract on her house. So,
Oh, nice.
That's where I think I'm going to focus.
Mhm.
I need to get out some like postcards or something like under contract, or probably do when it just sold. But yeah, I think I'm just going to focus on that area.
I'm in Ozark, and I was born and raised in Springfield, so I'm familiar with this area as well. And I'm hoping to kind of spread out all over. I sold one on acreage, and I've got another contract on a tiny house. And I'm hoping to sell $1 million listing this year as well. So I want to be able to say I can sell you your first house or your last house. So that's my goal.
Anybody else want to sell $1 million house this year? Yeah. Okay.
I currently live in Conway, but I'm originally from like north of Buffalo. So a lot of my contacts are people I went to school with that are an hour north of me now.
Mhm.
So I'm in Conway, but
So we should call you to show Max Creek.
I know Max Creek.
Okay.
Preston, I know all those areas.
Okay.
And I don't mind the drive.
Yeah,
you know.
we love it up there. We've done
Yeah,
a lot of
I love
business up
it.
there this year.
Yeah. So, but I'm a country girl. I love the rural life. So that's kind of my passion, is to do the farms and the acreage and rural areas.
Nice.
Oliver. And I like North. I like North because that's where I'm from.
Mhm.
But being on Evan's team, you know, I have to be prepared to do everything. So,
Right?
but I do like the Bolivar area and North. So,
Cool.
yeah.
I'm thinking Nixa, Ozark, and Republic kind of area because I'm in West Springfield right now. So
Mhm.
West Springfield, just kind of all that south, you know.
Nice.
Probably Battlefield to Seymour and from Fairgrove to Branson.
Nice.
I live in Rogersville, born and raised here.
Oh, cool.
Mindy Whitty, lived here in the Springfield area for 12 years. Yeah, 12 years. What else were we saying? My area.
What's your favorite thing to buy and sell?
If you're in my neighborhood, that's fantastic. Closer the better to my house. I don't like to drive very far. So I really like the southeast Springfield.
I'm Danielle Ferrer, and I've been in Springfield about 25 years. And Springfield, this is my first class,
Oh, cool.
so.
I am Natalia Sherbina. My hometown is Ash Grove, and I do like in Willard, Walnut Grove, and Springfield also. Yeah.
Willard, Walnut Grove. I didn't hear any of you guys say that. Oh, we missed you. We missed Brian.
I'm probably like Ozark, Nixa, Sparta area. I live in Sparta, so.
Good. Sparta and Willard. So now you guys know who to reach out to when you have a listing opportunity, and you guys can.
Brian Fisher. I don't like being in town very much, so anywhere outside of Springfield is where I like to stay. So cool.
What about doing intros at the last of the class? That was clever, wasn't it? We're like mystery class until then. Okay, so Eric Jackson, Ozark, Nixa, Rogersville, Springfield. Oh, wow. Wow. So does anybody have any questions for me? No? All right. It was nice to meet you all.